M M371. Wasn't expecting it. All right. We have these few warm-up problems here. This is how we're going to start. So what we're going to do is solve for x. So if we have the square root of x equals 2, how can we solve for x? What are we going to do? Square both sides. So the square root of x squared is going to be what? X. That's going to equal, what's 2 squared? 4. So we have x equals 4. Okay. What about the second one? We have the cube root of x equals -2. How do we get rid of the cube root? Cube it. Cube it. Cube both sides. So the cube root of x cubed is going to be what? X equals -8. Because 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8. How come this is negative? Because what? The 2 is negative, and when you multiply it by itself 3 times, 2 of them are going to make a positive, and then you still have that third one to keep it negative, right? Because you'll have -2 times -2 times -2. This makes a positive, these two, and you still got that negative to make it -8, right? Okay. What about this last one? Square it, and then square both sides. So you have x equals 4. Why is it not -4? Times -2 by -2, it gives you a +4, right? It's a square. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? Okay. So now we have this big area for notes. We know how much you love steps. So step 1, isolate the radical. Step 2, square it, cube, etc. Depending on what it's asking, you might have to square it, cube it, whatever it is. And then 3, solve. That is your 3 steps for success. 3 steps. Can you follow 3 steps? Should be able to. Should be able to. Now, first problem we have is 3 times the square root of x plus 7 equals 25. Is the radical isolated? No. So what do we have to do? Subtract 7. So we have 3 times the square root of x equals 25 minus 7 is 18. Okay. Is the radical isolated now? What's being done to it? It's multiplying by 3, so we got to do what to get rid of it? Divide it by 3. So we have the square root of x equals, what's 18 divided by 3? 6. And now this looks like something we did up there. So how are we going to get rid of the square root? Square it. Square both sides. So we have x equals 36. Are we done? Yes, we are. We have x by itself, right? So that is our answer. Now, what if I have the square root of x plus 1 equals 8? Is the radical already isolated? Yes. Okay, so step 2, what do we have to do? Square it. So square both sides. If I square this, what's going to be left on this left side? X plus 1 equals 64. And you got to subtract 1 to get x by itself. So x equals 63. Any questions on this? Yes, no, maybe? Okay. Page 74. We have a list of problems that we get to do. So we have A, which is the square root of 2x equal to 3. So let's write out our steps. 1 is what? What's the first step? Isolate radical. Okay, 2. Square, cube, etc. And 3, solve. See, you already know the 3 steps. We didn't even have to rewrite them. Okay, so now is the radical isolated? Yes, it is. So then what do we have to do? What's step 2? Square it. So square both sides. And we get what? 2x equals 9. Is that something we can solve? It is. So what do we have to do? Divide by 2, and you get x equals 4.5 or 9 halves, right? Okay. What about B? Is the radical isolated? Yes, it is. So this one we have to do what? By cube. Because it's the cube root, so you got to cube it, right? Okay. If I take the cube root and cube it, what am I left with? Just what's inside of there, right? So I get 2x minus 3 equals, what's 2 cubed? 8. Okay. Then I want to solve for x. So what do I have to do? Add 3. You get 2x equals 11. And then x is still not by itself. So we got to do what? Divide by 2. So you get x equals what? What do we get? We get 2x equals 11. We divide by 2 and we get 11 over 2. Okay. Are we done? Yes. Y'all are very quiet today. That's why you should be loud. I agree. I want to go home too, but we still got another 40 minutes. Yes. Yeah, go for it. Okay. So now let's look at C. Got 4 times the square root of x minus 6 equals 8. Is the radical isolated? So what do we have to do to isolate it? What's that 4 doing? It's multiplying. So you got to divide. So you take the square root of x minus 6, right? That's what's left. And 8 divided by 4? 2. Are we done? Did we just finish step 1? Yeah, we isolated it. So now we get to move to step 2. What is step 2? Square it. So square it. Square it. So if you square a square root, you get what's left inside of there, right? So x minus 6 equals, what's 2 times 2? 4. Okay. Now we got to solve for x. Add 6 to both sides. So you get x equals 10. Okay. Now you tell me what to do on D. Square it. And you get what? $25. Subtract 1 from each side. You get 2x equals 24. Divide by 2. You get x equals 12. Okay. Yes. Am I that predictable? Yeah. That I would give you an IXL over this? Yes. Yeah, I might give you an IXL over this. Okay. E. Is the radical, yes, sorry. You get 2 times x, so you got to divide by 2. 24 divided by 2 is 12. Okay. Now, is this in E isolated? Is the radical isolated? No. So what do we have to do? Do we get rid of the 2 or the 16? We got a mathematical disagreement. I like it. 2 or 16? 2 and 16. Order of operations. But when you're solving, what do? Do it backwards. So you do subtract the 16. No, they're not. Okay, so you subtract 16, you get 2 times the cube root of x equals to what? You subtract 16, so negative 16. I love when mathematical disagreements happen. It's like the highlights of my day. Divide by 2. So we get the cube root of x equals what? Negative 8. Cube it. When you cube both sides, it becomes what? What? It's going to be x. Let's do it in our calculator. It is a big number. So you get negative 8 to the 3rd power, negative 512. It is a negative. Why is it a negative? Let's do it. Oh, yeah. The 2 negatives cancel out here, but you still got this negative that makes it negative. Okay. So now we have f. Square root of 3x minus 1 plus 9 equals 8. How are we going to solve this one?
Minus 9.
Subtract 9. So you get square root of 3x minus 1 equals negative 1. Square both sides. Okay. What's left on the left? 3x minus 1 equals. Now, would it be negative 1? Positive 1. Why would it be positive 1? Negative times a negative makes a positive. So you got to be careful dealing with the squares and the cubes with your negatives. When in doubt, what's your best friend? Calculator. Okay. So add 1 to both sides. So you get 3x equals 2. Divide by 3. So you get x equals 2/3. Any questions on this? Okay. What if I were to have solved this problem and I would have gotten a square root of a negative 1? What's the square root of 1? 1. What's the square root of a negative? I. It's imaginary. So if you look at the top of your paper, extraneous solutions. Remember those from when we were dealing with asymptotes and stuff? You know how one of them come out and made the denominator 0 and it was undefined? That's kind of the same thing that's going to happen later on, is you're going to get something like this. Because if I would have taken, say that this would have been a number and I plugged it back in and it gave me the square root of a negative number, it would be an extraneous solution because it's not going to make it a real number, right? So just keep that in mind. That's not going to come into play today, but just wanted you to know about it today. Now comes your favorite part of this class. IXL. IXL M.13 to what magic score? 80.
Wait, which one was this? The one I'm gonna get to 65.
M10.
Okay, I got it. 60. I couldn't remember. Which one.
Is this all we're doing for today? This is it. You should have plenty of time to get it done.
You did?